It's happening soon and we cannot stop it. They do not want you guys to know this. Nuclear wastewater in the ocean, guys. So conditioning means the process of training a person or an animal to behave in a certain way, depending upon different circumstances. Now, the question that I have for you guys is, do you think that this was done during the health crisis? Some signs may be pointing to yes. And let me start by discussing the zombie apocalypse. Now, you might be wondering, why am I talking about this? Well, because we're conditioned in some way to look at it the same way that we looked at the recent pandemic that hit the entire world. Now think about it. Where's the safest place to stay in case of a zombie apocalypse happening? Now I'm not talking about aggressive zombies here, more of the tame unless provoked kind of zombies. Now a lot of people will probably say that it's just best to stay at home. And this was the best option provided to us during the health crisis. Now, I can already see the comments that are going to be calling me a crazy conspiracy theorist or a guy who's just trying to make something out of nothing. But what if we were conditioned to somehow follow a certain narrative? Years before the health crisis, we were bombarded with warnings of a C-19 virus. You remember Bill Gates' TED Talk, right? He was way ahead of his time in 2015.
When I was a kid, the disaster we worried about most was a nuclear war. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. We're not ready for the next epidemic. First is we need strong health systems in poor countries. We need a medical reserve corps, lots of people who've got the training and background who are ready to go with the expertise. And then we need to pair those medical people with the military, taking advantage of the military's ability to move fast, do logistics, and secure areas. We need to do simulations, germ games, not war games, so that we see where the holes are. Finally, we need lots of advanced R&D in areas of vaccines and diagnostics.
While Bill Gates didn't talk about a zombie apocalypse, multiple articles came out within the health crisis comparing it to one. Now, one of them was written by a professor, and he compared the silence the world would have in both scenarios, given that to avoid the virus or a zombie bite, people would have to avoid going out. Another one talked about rounding up all of the healthy people into a quarantine and watching out for zombies or the would-be carriers of the virus. One video takes the cake when it comes to how these two events were paired up to influence how we saw the global crisis. Now, this was released back in March of 2020, and it discusses how we should be fighting the next pandemic.
As far-fetched as it seems, according to what we know from lore and canon, zombieism would work the same way as infectious diseases like SARS, Ebola, and the flu. Once a person gets infected, they pass it from person to person via close contact. As with any newly emerging pathogen, the search for a cure would be complicated, since its origins would likely be a mystery. But there are things the world can do to make sure it's far more resilient and ready for the zombie apocalypse or any other pandemic like it.
Now, the video is a lot longer, but I can't seem to find the full version. But maybe this is because they talk about how this will be funded and which government will take over if another crisis happens. But is there another one coming? Check this out. The ongoing director of the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, she says that the United States is ill-prepared and ill-equipped for the global pandemic. And this wasn't said years ago. This was a recent statement. Something else that happened recently was the move from the European Union to sign a contract with our vaccine producers to reserve vaccine manufacturing capacity just in case another outbreak happens. Now, you gotta wonder, what does all this mean? Like, is this the 2015 TED Talk all over again, and they're leaving subtle hints that we should worry about the next big thing to hit the entire world? Or are all of these just happening by coincidence and there's nothing to really worry about here? Let me know what you guys think down below. Now, I understand how some people might think that this story about zombies was, just crazy and all that. I get it. But, here's something that I think that tops it to some extent. I mean, I get that bills need to be paid. I'm on top of these things every single month, and that's because I have a deep understanding of how one should budget their money. But just imagine having to pay for a water bill that's not even yours. Now, this is the case for an Atlanta homeowner, as he received a bill from 15 years ago. Now, the catch is that the bill is named to somebody else, a person who passed away in 2007. And to make matters worse, the bill is $118,000. State law and Atlanta watershed policy typically says that a water bill is tied to a person, meaning that the new owner really doesn't owe this much in water. However, the new owner says that he's tried to sell the house 3 times, and all 3 times the city has stood in the way. He's already filed a lawsuit against the city, but it's insane though, right? Can you imagine having to deal with a $118,000 water bill that's not even yours? I mean, you got to think that they're pretty desperate for revenue at this point. I don't know why they're giving this man so much of a hassle. Now, speaking of desperate, luxury watch values are going down, and it's yet another sign that the middle class is starting to either run out of money or they're placing their money in other places. Rolex prices are nearing a 2-year low, and that's saying a lot about where we are and how many people are thinking right now about their money, together with the pain that inflation has put on all of us. Would you ever buy a luxury watch worth thousands of dollars? Could that be considered an investment? Or would you just rather invest that money in more traditional investments like stocks, index funds, ETFs, or even real estate instead? Let me know what you guys think on that one. Now, since we're already talking about future plans, were you guys aware of this one? The IAEA, or the International Atomic Energy Agency, has just given the green light for Japan to release radioactive water from the damaged Fukushima nuclear plant to the Pacific Ocean. I wish I was kidding you guys, honestly. Honestly, I wish I was joking about a lot of things that I update you guys on, but unfortunately, they're real and it's happening. So Japan's government is now saying that the treated radioactive wastewater will be highly diluted and released slowly over decades. One dangerous element is a hydrogen isotope called radioactive tritium, and yes, this will also be released into the Pacific Ocean. But since they're going to be doing this so slowly, the release of tritium being released would be on par or maybe even lower than the amount other countries allow. The problem with the element is that there's no technology to remove it from this water, and at this point, so there's really no choice but to have it included. Now you might be asking, why don't they just keep the water there? Well, they're telling us that there's no more space left, as they now have 1,000 massive tanks that contain around 1.3 million metric tons of wastewater, and their problem is that building more tanks isn't an option. So yeah, Pacific Ocean it is. I don't even understand how they're letting this happen. Now here's the best part of all of this and why I'm surprised that they're even doing this. So experts, they're divided on this. Now some are saying that tritium is too weak to penetrate our skin, but ingesting enough of it can increase the risk of cancer, as if we need any more items in our foods and water supplies to increase cancer, right? Now others are saying that we're exposed to small amounts of tritium anyway, so we really shouldn't have to worry too much. Now you guys tell me, should we just ignore cancer and not worry about the wastewater that's going to be dumped into our Pacific Ocean? There's so much to think about these days, but we cannot lose our focus. Our focus should remain on our households and our goals. Now, I understand that many of you are slowly solving your financial troubles, and that's honestly one of the best things that you can do right now. But if you want to move to a better place, there are other ways to get to financial freedom. Just imagine having multiple streams of income. Sounds pretty good, huh? Well, this can potentially be achieved through side hustles and small businesses. Maybe you're an investor. We can talk about real estate, the stock market, given that we're getting closer and closer to finding some unreal deals in the market. Well, if you guys want to talk more about that, drop me some comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. But as always, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.